मेरा चाइल्डहुड बहुत ही स्टेबल था। एक ही शहर में पढ़ा, एक ही स्कूल में गया और लाइफ लॉन्ग फ्रेंड्स बनाए। बट आज के जो हमारे गेस्ट हैं, बाय द टाइम शी वाज रेडी टू मेक फ्रेंड्स, इट वाज टाइम फॉर हर टू पैक हर बैग्स। उन्होंने 11 साल में 11 स्कूल चेंज किए। शी ग्रू अप इन अ मिलिट्री फैमिली and moved from India to Netherlands about a decade back and landed what most people would call a dream job in one of the biggest banks in Netherlands. And just like that, when things appeared completely settled, she quit her job without having anything lined up for her. She started learning yoga thereafter. She tried her own YouTube channel and she also started teaching. In between, finding what most of us are looking for, a balance between work and happiness. Let's meet our guest today and find out about her life journey on Beyond the Mic with Dan. All right, Sim, welcome to Beyond the Mic with Danny. And it's really wonderful to, catch up with you after such a long time. काफी कुछ change हुआ है since the, last time we met, I think about close to about 10, 15 years back, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, probably. Maybe even more. I don't know. मेरे को
I
बिल्कुल
have
याद
more
नहीं.
gray hairs now. Yeah, I have more gray hair, so I can see a change in myself for sure.
Same here, but you don't see it straight away.
Yeah. So, first thing first, let's start up with, your initial part of your life to start up with. Your
Mm.
father served in the Air Force for a very long time. And if I'm not wrong, you changed 11 schools in 11 years. That's what you told me, right?
Yeah, I hope my
So
memory
how
is
does
so.
this, so how much of, जो तुम्हारी personality है, how does this constant shifting, kind of shaped up your personality?
It's interesting because I've used this term. I'm very adaptable in almost all job interviews. And that's probably because of every year or every few years shifting schools. In fact, Mohanbari mein, where we were, I think that's the first time I met you I was 13, 14. I had to change schools in the same posting of 1 year or 18 months twice because one of the schools did not want to accept students in the middle of the school year. But I think what it really has done is I was always the new girl in the school because I didn't often go to Kendriya Vidyalaya or Air Force or Army schools. I did, but many a times to private schools. So I had to always explain why am I joining in the middle of the year or at an odd moment and try to make friends, to fit in, etc. So I think that has basically shaped my ability to make at least maybe not deep friendships, but make quick friendships and try to learn how to fit in. But at the same time, maybe sometimes abhi lagta hai ki ho sakta hai if I would have lived in one place for a long time, I would have had less of a chameleon personality. Sometimes I had to look for who I really am. But it really helps you figure out new places, new people much faster. At least that is what it did for me.
So basically, you always felt like an outsider, right?
Sometimes, no, not always. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes I had to really try to be the person who could join a friend circle. But somehow it would work out pretty well. Yeah. But I wasn't always an outsider. That feels like as if I was left alone. But I was always the new person. Yeah.
Being the chatterbox you are, chance nahi hai ki you'll be left out alone. But yeah, you always had to like kind of force your way through the groups.
Huh, that's true. I had to force my way. I could also make conversation quite easily. So that ability, I think the fact that you're new somewhere, you have to figure out uh, what might people find interesting and do you connect with people on various levels, be it sports, be it school, be it, I don't know, bachpan mein kya, uniform color, I don't know. It was much easier. But I think after high school, after the end of school year, school, I feel like over time I became less of a chatterbox, less of an extrovert because I started to notice that I am very extroverted with people I like and who are my friends, but with everybody else, I'm an ambivert, like in between type. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you mentioned
Yeah.
that, in 2017, you moved to Rotterdam, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
in your own word, that was the first time जब आपको लगा कि, you felt at home. So what does this word home mean to somebody जिसके पास कभी permanent home था ही नहीं?
Yeah. It's kind of strange. Now I've lived in Rotterdam, the city, and moved in Rotterdam in 3 places. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि Rotterdam में एक ही घर जहाँ पे मैं आई वहीं पे रह रही हूँ since for the past 9 years, but 3 different houses or apartments with roommates in the first 2, and now it's my partner. But I've always felt that I felt at home here because it was the first time I felt I think nobody is going to make me move unless I decide to move. Because in the Air Force, it was okay. Papa is getting posted out. We have to move. Let's move now. Okay, let's figure out a new place. But when somebody asks me what home is, I always say where I live now in Rotterdam with my partner and my 3 rabbits. But home in India is where my parents live. So wherever they would be, they are home. So if when they were living in Mumbai, that time I would say I go home to Mumbai. And when they are now in Hyderabad, I say I go home to them. So I think for me, it's not about the location, but where I feel like I feel like I will go back to it. And it mostly is due to the people who live there. So either my partner or my family. I think with maybe in the Netherlands, if I would have moved somewhere else, it was in Rotterdam, some other town, शायद मुझे लगता कि even that is my home because I never moved out of this city. I feel this is home.
So मतलब अच्छा लग रहा होगा for somebody, who keeps on moving to finally एक ही city के अंदर रहने को मिल रहा है, तो it must be a good, happy feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I think there were moments where we moved quite a bit, and thankfully we started. I don't remember when it was exactly that we had an Orkut profile. The High Five and Orkut, the predecessors of Facebook. That's when I started connecting with friends who I was studying with in class 5 or even before that. But other than that, it was always okay. We move on to the next place, and all the friendships that you made were probably left behind. And so now the ability to actually stay in one place and have friends who uh, are in the same city as you, that really has helped make me feel also that, okay, this is a place that I want to live in. And this is where I don't want to leave. I can call this home.
I think मतलब for reference, for in case any of the Gen Z people watch this show, जो
Yeah.
सिमरत ने बताया Orkut, that was something akin to Instagram or Facebook, social media type था in the prehistoric times, जब लोगों ने नया social media पढ़ा था. So you can like Google it and know what exactly Orkut is. But anyways, since Simrat, you have moved to like 2 different countries and like stayed major part of your life in India and Netherlands. So in दोनों जगह में से which part of the culture has like kind of shaped you in a person that you are right now? किसका ज़्यादा influence रहा है basically?
I think my working life I've spent in the Netherlands. Even though I worked in India for about 15 months, my working life has been fully here. And because of that, a lot of the way I work in a professional setting is very much in line with, I would say, the way the Dutch work or the way the Dutch behave in a lot of things. For instance, I always make a calendar invite, even if I have to go for a coffee with someone. So a lot of structure, agenda, everything is written in your agenda. And that is kind of weird for Indians. And also for me, it was very weird in the beginning because India, maybe we would just call up our friends and be like, Acha, hum aa rahe hain, let's go out for a drink. Or, oh, do you want to meet today?
That's
In the
true.
evening. That, at least here, I've not seen that. Sometimes people are booked for months in advance. Like every weekend is booked for them because they have to do sports or something like that, or even just go out for a lunch or a dinner. So that part, the having an agenda, that part has really been, I would say I'm very comfortable being that person. Maybe I always liked it. So not having spontaneity is now the Dutch version of me, I could say. But what I don't know, I think her country may there are all sorts of people, right? There's no one. We shouldn't stereotype that there's only one type of culture, but there is a bit of an independence here. So even when you go to your parents, people would not just drop in. They would ask if they have the time, if they're going to be available, or if, as a kid, can I stay over at your place? Asking your parents that. That's not a thing that an Indian does, right? Mama
True.
Papa should be available for us. So that part of me is still the same. Like, I wouldn't ask my parents for permission for anything, and I'll depend on them for a lot more things that I think a lot of people here wouldn't. So I am halfway, somewhere in the middle of a little bit being Dutch and a little bit being Indian in the way I operate and the way I behave. I don't know which has had a bigger influence. I think personal life, I'm more Indian. Professional life, I'm more Dutch.
तो मतलब अभी अभी भी you still love butter chicken and your drinks, right or wrong?
No, that's okay. But that has nothing to do with the Netherlands. Just me growing or older, I guess.
नहीं,
I'm
पंजाबियों की
vegetarian.
पर्सनालिटी तो बनती क्या बोलते हैं बटर चिकन और दारू से है ना, सो इसीलिए बोल रहा था.
वही
आई
तो
लव टू स्टीरियोटाइप
स्टीरियोटाइप
पीपल,
को ब्रेक
so
करना था ना.
I am like pretty comfortable with stereotyping people, so that's cool.
No, I'm vegetarian, so butter chicken days are gone, and I've been vegetarian for a few years now, and that was from my own choice, which makes it hard here because people eat a lot of meat. Though sometimes finding meals that fit your diet can be harder. And drinking is quite common. Like people, it's normal to have like a glass of wine or beer with your friends and during dinner, while hard liquor is less common. Like I think India mein hum log rum and coke was more my thing. And now you give me one glass of wine and I'm like, bus, I'm done for the next 2 months. So that's the stereotype I've completely broken about Punjabis.
तो इसीलिए तेरे पेरेंट्स ने तुझे इंडिया से बाहर निकाल दिया.
That could be. हाँ, हो सकता
But
है.
anyways, moving on, you had a very successful career at ING, मतलब kind of job जो लोग dream करते हैं. So you were in ING, but still, there was a moment that you realized that this is not the success and fulfillment that you're looking at. So what exactly वो moment क्या था जिसपे, you felt कि this is not for me?
To be honest, I think that's very hard to point out, but I don't know. Matlab, when I moved here, I knew that I wanted to live here and find a job. Also because visa rules. If you don't, after you study, you have some time, about a year to look for a job. And after that, if you find one, it has to be sponsored by the organization. So this organization, company, whatever will say, we would like to hire this person and we would like to give them a contract for 1 year or 2 years or whatever. And then their visa is secure. And if you lose that job, you tend to have 3 months to find something and then bye, you have to leave. So these rules are pretty strict. And the fact that I put in the time, effort, and of course my parents had put in the money to make this change in life, I was like, I must make sure that at least return on investment should happen. And of course, I really like living here, the freedom that I had. So getting a job was key for me in the beginning. And when I found ING and the job that I started doing first as a banker, and after about 3.5 years, I moved to sustainability consulting within the bank. It was very fulfilling. Every day you learned something new, you met new people, working in an international setting. Sometimes I was the only non-Dutch speaker. So for them, I was the international setting. I think I learned a lot about working with people from different cultures as well. But after growing up the ranks a little bit, let's call it that, up the ranks, which is not a thing other than in the military, I did not know exactly why I was looking for the next promotion. Why did I want to put in this extra work for what next? And it could also be connected to the fact that I was working in sustainability within a very conventional organization. ING is a regular bank. Bank से आप नहीं expect करते कि वो sustainability के बारे में ज़्यादा care करे unless it's a bank that is based on those fundamentals. So you're also looking for a meaning in everything that you're doing. And when I stopped probably seeing that, and that's just me. It's not like ING does not deliver on its promises. It does. It's just that मुझे नहीं समझ आ रहा था what I was doing, उसका impact क्या हो रहा था. And maybe I got a bit impatient because I was like, क्यों नहीं दिख रहा मुझे result? मैंने इतने projects पे काम किया है.
Hmm.
Why aren't the CO2 emissions going down? You know, like you can't have that direct connection. It's a bank by the end of the
True.
day. So at that point, I was like, okay, maybe I need to switch. I need to do something else. And that's why last year in 2025, end of April, I basically told my boss that I wanted to take a break and quit and be like without a job for a bit.
So like just to थोड़ा सा मैं parallel draw कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे between your life and my life over here because मैंने भी
Yeah.
Air Force में I worked for close to about 21-22 years and एक stable job को छोड़ के when you move out without having any job, something which happened with me also. Like when I quit Air Force, I had not taken up any job. I had not applied for any job. In fact, मैंने सोचा भी नहीं मुझे करना क्या है बाहर जाके. But I also took a call of leaving that stable life. So whenever you do a big change in your life, you always have a conversation with yourself. So in your case, वो क्या conversation था जो तुमने अपने साथ किया था before you quit this job?
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of private thing, but if you can throw a light on this.
No, I think this is very important and I would love to share what went through my mind. जितना मुझे याद है, maybe there were more thoughts. Few things. One was if I quit right now and don't have anything, will I have to leave my life here? And that was not going to happen because I had already got the Dutch passport. So I knew कि मुझे कोई निकाल नहीं सकता forcibly. They're not going to be like, okay, you're going to leave. That was one. Okay. Second was financially, how long, if at all, could I survive without a job and also be able to pay my mortgage or any other bills? When I did that financial check, I had a timeline in mind. I was like, okay, good. These are two things at the back of my mind. I don't have kids. So I was like, वो एक extra responsibility नहीं है for which you sometimes have to just stick into stay into a stable job saying,
Very true.
I have all of these things to make sure that my kid is happy or whatever. So I don't have kids right now. So I said, okay, that's fine. Now I can decide to fly a little bit in whatever way. And then even though I didn't have a exact clue of what I wanted to do, there were a few things I wanted to try. And then I wasn't 100% sure of will these things be the next career or path. So then I told myself, it's okay. I'm not burning any bridges. And I have worked in ING and have a corporate career for more than 7 years. I have something on my CV. So if in a few months, just like people take sabbaticals, if in a few months I realize कि maybe it was just that I needed to take some distance from corporate life, I can always go back. So I always told myself, it's okay, let's take the risk, let's jump over for a bit. And if it doesn't work out, I hope people still love me and they'll take me back into whichever job or organ. Yeah.
So
that was
basically
the
जो
concept.
like जनरली हम मिलिट्री फौजी मतलब किड्स जो होते हैं उनके अंदर बिकॉज ऑफ द मिलिट्री लाइफस्टाइल थोड़ा सा एक रिस्क टेकिंग एबिलिटी ज्यादा होती है बट द सेम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम बिकॉज यू ऑलवेज हैव अ अनस्टेबल लाइफ तो अनस्टेबल लाइफ के चक्कर में रिस्क हम कई बार नहीं भी लेते बिकॉज यू आर इन अ स्टेबल स्टेट इफ यू लुक एट योर जॉब इन आईएनजी तो देयर वुड हैव बीन kind of conflict between both your thoughts at that point of time, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Like I've been looking for this stability. That's why probably I like living in Rotterdam. Ki ab now I have a stable life. And then suddenly I'm like, okay, no, let's shake the tree, make it unstable for a bit. Maybe I was missing the whole military movement and change that military forced upon us. So I was like, let's bring it. Let's make it happen a little. But I was very scared. I was
You know,
truly scared. Yeah, I felt like, what if I made the wrong decision? And in a few months, I realized, shit, I should have just taken a sabbatical, unpaid leave for a few months and gone back. Because reapplication to any organization, it takes a lot of time and effort. And also, I was like, my fear, what if there's a recession and I don't get a job? That was like constantly like the economy is failing, there's war happening.
true.
What are we going to do? Yeah. So I was also quite risk averse, but I think somehow I had some ability to say, chalo, let's take a deep dive.
Actually, nostalgia, hits people in different ways. तुम्हारे case में just hit you in a way of suddenly taking a risk. But at the same point, again, when I, again drawing a little bit of parallels to both our life stories, a lot of people confuse burnout with desire for change. So when you have a burnout, you need a vacation. When you have a desire for change, you need a different lifestyle. So in your case, if I can read it correctly, it was more of a desire for a life change, because obviously I think the life in the ING was pretty comfortable. It was not a burnout in your case.
No. Burnout is something like I've learned about it. I've actually now taught about it a little bit as well, even though I don't have a degree. But it's a phenomenon that is connected to the workplace. WHO actually has a definition for it as well. And it is a true, I don't want to misquote anything, but it is a situation that can, I think, can even be diagnosed, and it's an occupational phenomenon wherein because of your job you feel cynical, you don't want to work like you don't want to be in that same cycle anymore. It could be related to a lot of things why it could cause burnout, why burnout happens. But no, and it's very taken quite seriously, at least where I am. There were a lot of people who have faced burnout in the work at ING and other places, and then they need medical support as well to help them feel better, and get more motivated about, remotivated and excited about work. But no, in my case, it wasn't that. I was probably bored out sometimes, but not burnt out. And I was surely looking for a change. And somehow I felt that ING may actually, I could have founded an ING as well. But for some weird reason, I was like, nahi, main roz I take the same train to go to the office, except for COVID period. I don't want to do it over and over again. I want a change.
Okay. So, quick question. What is the biggest misconception about career break that people have, and you experienced it while you did a break?
Biggest misconception is that you will feel that this is the true free moment that you needed, and it'll be absolutely, probably I also had this misconception, you will feel so free and without any stress or worries. Absolutely false. मेरे दिमाग में so often, even when I would go spend money on a coffee, I was like, oh my God, I'm paying money for coffee and I'm not making any money in return. Oh my God, I have a break of 2 weeks. What if I go for an interview? People will think I actually was fired and I'm lying about it. You know, those kind of things, at least mentally, I felt that I would be I would feel like I'm free. There is no chains, koi bandhan nahi hai and stuff. Nahi. My mind was constantly on and I needed to do
True.
new things and keep myself motivated even when I didn't have this schedule every day of waking up, doing meetings or going to the office, etc.
So, one thing you loved about your career break and one thing you really hated about your career break.
One thing I loved about my career break was that I could try new things without really thinking about the time. So, for instance, I went for a month to Spain and I also did my yoga teacher training there. I didn't have to care about what time it was of the year. Whatever I found interesting, I just booked and I went. So saying yes to something like that was much easier because of the career break. And one thing I hated was no schedule. Like you were suddenly left open with no agenda, no plan. And at first it feels exciting, but later I was just like, Arey, like I need to fix something in the house. Like I was making up tasks to keep myself busy. So that I didn't like. Yeah.
मुझे लग रहा था तुम बोलोगी जो फ्री कॉफीज मिलती थी ING, that would have been like the biggest loss.
Unfortunately, the coffee at ING was not very tasty, so we used to go pay for it at the cafeteria. So no.
I'm going to tag ING in this video so that at least they improve their coffee.
Please don't say that. Unka business model is probably the cafeteria se coffee when people buy, you know. Well,
No,
not
I'm not going
unka,
to do that.
outsourced company ka. Yeah.
Again, like when you took your decision, financial freedom, I think, plays a big part. So you and your partner saving would have, played a big role in you taking this decision, isn't it?
Absolutely wrong. It was only my savings. So I made it a point to say that no, it's my decision, my savings. Nothing to do with my partner and his savings. I didn't touch a penny of his money. We anyway have separate bank accounts. We have one joint spending account, but we have separate savings accounts. So it was all about my independence, my freedom, my decision. So if I wanted to go jump off a hill, I would have to pay for it myself. And that was the agreement we had as well. But yes, savings played a big role in that financial freedom.
So basically another Punjabi stereotype that you have broken here, क्योंकि ये big fat Punjabi family नहीं जहाँ पे मतलब हम कपड़ा भी खरीद बाहर खरीद पहले घर में 4 लोगों से पूछ तूने डिसीजन खुद से लिया basically, right?
Ha, in
So
fact, sorry. No, go ahead.
नहीं, please go ahead.
No, I did discuss it with my partner because I wanted him to know कि, at some point I will be crying next to you saying, my God, why did I take this decision? To use him as a sounding board. But actually, I did not tell my parents on purpose until I had told my boss and decided to quit because मुझे पता था that Papa would be like, so what is the plan? What are you going to do next? You want to teach? Maybe first PhD करना. I was like, I'm not going to get clouded, even though it comes from a place of love and making sure that I have something going on in life, stable and keeping me happy. This is one thing I didn't tell my parents. Yeah.
Okay. So जब तूने ब्रेक लिया था you also started your YouTube channel, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So what surprised you most about creating content on YouTube?
And I think you can put this at the after the video. We have had this conversation in the editing. There's this video called the few lessons that I learned after starting my YouTube channel, and the thumbnail says consistency question mark. And I think that's the one thing I learned. It is very hard to make content and do it consistently. I love watching interesting content, shorts or long form or whatever. And I thought I would learn something, build new skills, editing, speaking in front of the camera. For a while, I had no Instagram account, so I had a completely zero digital presence except maybe LinkedIn. And so for me, it was about breaking out of that shell a little bit and learning something new. I made terrible content in the beginning. And it was okay because I said I just have to try and at some point it'll get better. I have 111 subscribers, Danny, so way fewer than yours and way fewer watch hours. And if you may have noticed, maybe sometime around 2025, I was really pushing when I had the time. And then suddenly when I started doing other things, it took a backseat. And Abhi, since I don't even remember, maybe March, I have put out nothing. And that is my biggest learning. It's very difficult to make good content, but also just consistently produce any sort of volume, which is the key to actually getting the channel out there and also getting better. So that's why I did this, because I'm very ashamed of my progress or lack thereof on my
But I
YouTube
can tell you one thing, that your content was not bad. But had it been bad, you would have got more viewers for sure.
That
Good
would have been
content doesn't
awesome.
sell.
I could have just thought of making shitty content, and maybe then I could have had hate
No, but
speech on there or something.
I also remember last time conversation where you told me कि जो radical honesty है, it doesn't always translate into views, है ना? So what do you think? मतलब कि social media rewards authenticity more या फिर performance?
I mean, there's a place for everything. There are so many videos I have seen of people pointing out these really authentic channels where people are just in their living room talking about things that they are doing and they are getting a number of views. And of course, there's a lot of curated content, lot of now AI generated or helped by AI content as well, which also has a place for it. Maybe the radical honesty I was bringing onto my channel was not really helping, but usme bhi, it's because I never probably learned fully how to bring that hook, how to make the story interesting. Maybe I was yapping too much. I don't know. So I think there's a place for everything, and it's also about the execution of it. I think I could have just personally for my own channel executed a bit better and made more content to know what works and what doesn't. Just keep being honest. But at some point, I felt like it became performative for me. अच्छा मैं अभी हर चीज के बारे में about my break every few days, what I'm thinking. If I start putting that out, start recording it, it started to feel a little bit performative, and I felt like maybe some of those feelings should just stay within me. That's why I also didn't know what else to produce or like what else to bring out.
That's just you being honest once again, Sim. अच्छा ये सोच अगर तेरा YouTube channel viral हो जाता first 6 months में, like totally viral, people would have like connected to this girl who's, you know, sitting in Netherlands and suddenly doing this career transition, everything.
Yeah.
So in what direction would your career would have gone right?
Maybe I would have continued to just make more content about it. But I feel, oh, there was a little bit of a lag. Sorry, wo edit ho jayega, I guess. Maybe I would have ki- become more aware of the fact that okay, what my story is, it is interesting, it's engaging, so I can keep making some content about it. But to be honest, uske baad, what would I have done? Just become a YouTuber who uh, had a career change, and the career change, if it became YouTube, then what content would I have brought? I don't know. Um, Maybe it would have been about fitness, maybe it would have been about yoga and asana, or still about figuring myself out. So I feel like I could have been on the YouTube side of it, making it a bit bigger. But deep inside, I always wanted to teach. So abhi I haven't shared that I'm teaching now, but maybe I would have used YouTube to teach. Maybe I would have done it that way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
अच्छा, also I remember तूने मुझे बताया था that you call yourself as asana teacher but not a yoga teacher.
Correct.
Why is this distinction so important for you?
I think when I learned about yoga through Ramdev Baba, it was always about hum yoga asan karte hain, and usse Ramdev would sell all these things that you will lose weight, and you know what other things. I don't know, my nani used to be doing all sorts of Kapal Bhati, which is actually, I don't think it helps in losing weight anyway. But when I learned about the fact that yoga as a term is used, of course, to talk only about asana, but it is much more. There are so many other aspects of this yogic philosophy, yogic way of living, that I felt कि अगर मैं कहूँ कि मैं yoga करती हूँ, it would be a lie, because take simple things, pranayam or meditation, or my goal is to not reach samadhi, which is the goal of someone who follows the yogic path. Like even pranayam and meditation, I find it sometimes very hard to bring into my daily practice. Or regular practice. When I'm teaching yoga, I, of course, ask people to focus on their breath. I help them meditate if I can. But I would feel like a fraud if I would say I'm a yoga teacher. Or like if I would say I'm a yogi, which is absolutely not true. I think aapke Beyond the Mic pe there was a guest who teaches yoga, and when I heard
Yes.
him speak as well, I was
Yes.
like, yeah, this is the person who can call themselves a yoga teacher. I am someone who's teaching the physical aspect of yoga, at least for now. So for me, it'll be better to call myself an asana teacher, and when I feel I've made that transition, I will start to call it yoga teacher.
Does teaching yoga to people, is tells you more about them rather than a corporate room?
Wow, this is a very hard question.
मैं आसान
um
क्वेश्चन पूछने नहीं वाला था.
That's true. I think you see a different side of people when they come to a yoga class, and you do see the unrest in their mind a lot more when they come to a yoga class, because suddenly they are now told कि आपको you have to focus on your breath, you have to keep your eyes closed, you don't have to care about who's doing what asana in what way, it's about you and your practice. Shavasana mein, keeping your eyes closed and just lying there, not caring about anything around you, it's very, very difficult. And then you do learn a lot more about the unrest in people's minds, and how much they care about how they compare to each other more visibly. Maybe in the corporate world, you would see it or hear about it in conversations, or at the coffee corner, or you notice it in meetings when they are being performative. But in one yoga class, you can already see, not for all of them, but for a lot of people, you can see that. Same goes for me. The way I'm in a yoga class, sometimes a little too competitive. Somebody would see it. She cannot do it, but she's trying too hard. कि ये ऐसे कैसे fold हो जाए ये वाली leg. So I do think yes, to some extent yes.
Also, Sin, like, you have taught people from different walks of life. Students,
Yeah.
people from corporate. I mean, all different sort of, people who have been your student. So ऐसी कौन सी चीज है जो सब लर्नर्स में कॉमन है?
You'll have all sorts of learners, of course, but wow, this is a very difficult question. And you just told me कि आप बहुत easy questions नहीं पूछते हो. That's true. Um, I feel sometimes I feel everybody is willing and open to learning if they think you have something to offer them. So you have to convince the person in some way, be it through your delivery of a presentation, be it through उनको कुछ explain करके to draw it out or write it out, or through maybe even a yoga class. If they connect with you in some way and they think you have something of value to provide, then the person is willing to learn from you. And this is, I've seen now, having maybe trained some people in my team in the corporate world, or yoga classes, or teaching at a university or of applied sciences, or being a learner myself. I think you need to respect the person in some way to feel ki I want to learn from them. So that's one common thing in all learners or all people.
Nice. So, acha, also, Sim, you left your job looking for, a kind of purpose or passion in life, but you ended
Yeah.
up discovering yourself. So, was the outcome something which you had not expected, something which has, come out totally different to you?
Interestingly, no, because back in 2010, after I finished class 12, I wanted to actually go and take up the Teach for India traineeship in India. Before that, I used to teach sometimes other friends or sometimes the domestic help ki daughter or something. And I'd done some in small volunteer type internships in India in the education sector as well. So I really wanted to go to Teach for India and be like, I wanted to do that 2-year traineeship or something. And it did not end up happening for whatever reason. I didn't apply actually eventually because I think Papa said, um, try to do some other things first and then you can go to this part of the world. I don't know.
लोग
I
क्या
don't want to
कहेंगे?
misquote it.
In your case,
Maybe,
I should
maybe.
say, Papa kya kahenge has killed more dreams.
Or I don't want to hurt my dad. He supported me in everything. But this is one thing I always tell him. But he doesn't believe me that he said this, that, I don't think you should go for this because you will get very comfortable making very little money. So try to upskill yourself, go for a bachelor or master or whatever, and then go for something like this. So he had a point, but maybe I took it very literally and didn't follow that part of my journey or dream. Or was this after 2000, after my bachelor? I don't remember that correctly. So I knew I wanted to get into education. My nanny ran a school for most of her life. I had changed so many schools. So I think there was some connection to, okay, wanting to be an educator. So that is why when I took the break, I did go and shadow two people, one person who teaches at a high school here and one person who teaches at a University of Applied Sciences. And somehow high school I couldn't feel that that would be the job for me. But at the University of Applied Sciences, I felt like, okay, I feel like here people are here to willing to study. They are open to learning. Maybe this is the thing that I should do next. And that's how I ended up now being a lecturer at a Applied Sciences University.
So, abhi, because of social media, itne sare log reels dekhte रहते. We watch a lot of these videos which kind of tell you कि life में purpose ढूंढना है. A lot of self-help books, सब कुछ होता है. So do you think people put a lot of pressure on themselves to find that one lifetime, one single lifelong passion?
I don't know about people in general, but I did for sure because of all of this, where you're like, you see people who've taken a break and then suddenly they've found their next thing, or they have gone on a world tour of some sorts, backpacking, and then they have figured out who they want to be. And I think I tried to be that person as well for a bit. Oh, I can take a break, I can do some yoga teacher training as well, being a little bit too stereotypical about it. And I will find my next thing. But that I did put that pressure on myself, and I eventually realized there is no one next thing for me. And even now, even though I'm a lecturer, I tell myself this is something that I'm gonna explore and try. and be my best at it. And eventually, if I realize ki maybe this is not the lifetime career, then I can change. Then I can go to something else. And I didn't have that insight before taking the break because I felt like I saw a lot of people at ING living their life at ING until their end of career, like until retirement. So I thought this was going to be my life. I'd seen everybody around me also like that, my dad, for instance. So I did put that pressure to find that one thing or find myself, but eventually I realized it wasn't going to be just one thing that I do that would give me happiness.
Okay. One more question on the similar lines. If somebody is like feeling trapped, in a well-paid corporate job, 3 tips that you'll give to them to quit the job.
To quit the job? Oh, okay. 3 tips to quit the job. I thought you would say 3 tips in general. And I would tell them.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
This is
3
like a
tips to quit
standard operating
job.
procedure, SOP to quit job.
Yeah. Okay. SOP to quit job. First of all, make a very nice overview of what your financial standing is. And if you're able to pay your bills with whatever savings you have and investments, etc., liquid savings investment, then do not feel that if you quit your job, the world's going to end. So that's first. It'll give you that mental satisfaction and peace. Second thing to quit your job is also to recognize that quitting does not mean the end. It can be the start to something else. So you can always, if you're really unsure, just, toss a coin. Give yourself heads I quit and tails I don't. It makes your the stress of making the decision easier. And you just have 2 options, right? Otherwise, you keep making scenarios in your mind, etc. Just give yourself one chance, and then if it says quit, then you quit. If it doesn't, then you sadly keep working in your job. And the third is because it's an operating procedure, so I have to tell what to do, and it's okay. I think 2 things are most important for me: the financial stability, and the second is the stress of making that decision. Don't make it too big because it doesn't matter in the larger scheme of things. You'll do so many things in life in the future and whatnot that quitting your job could be just one small change that you're going to make in your very long life. So it is perfectly fine in the larger scheme of things. So I'll just say give 2.
That's okay. You've always been a shammer, so I didn't expect the third one.
Thanks.
Okay. Quick rapid fire.
Okay.
Tea person or coffee person?
Coffee.
Mumbai or Rotterdam?
Rotterdam.
Okay. Corporate boardroom or yoga studio?
Yoga studio.
Stability or adventure?
Stability in adventure.
Books or podcasts?
Podcast.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset at the beach or sunrise in the mountains.
Okay. One habit that changed your life?
Making sure I always put the things where I pick them up from, put them back exactly in that place.
One book you would recommend everybody to read?
Beginners by someone Vanderbilt.
Raven,
Don't ask
tell me the
first
name. I'll share the link in the description.
Yes, it's called Beginners.
And lastly, the biggest lesson you learned from your career break in one sentence?
That quitting something and taking the time to reflect does not mean that you have missed out something in life. It's the start of something new.
That was really nice. And with that, Sin, we come to the end of our podcast. A podcast which has been shot intercontinental, as I would put it across. My first international podcast. But it was really wonderful talking to you. And I hope, people who watch this podcast take inspiration from you to, take a charge of their life. Rather than being scared about their decision, they feel more confident about taking decisions and realize the fact that change hamesha kharab nahi. Change is good. If you think about it and, plan it well in advance like Sim did.
Well, thank you for saying those nice words. I don't really think मैंने इतना plan किया था, but it worked out. Thank you for having me as a guest. I feel super honored, by the way. I should have said it at the very beginning. I didn't even think I had a story good enough to be on your very, very highly watched podcast. So thank you so much. And I really hope people enjoy this conversation because I know I...
Same here, same. Take care and hope to catch up again
Thank you.
soon.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.